But I'm really excited to talk with you both about this movie because it is my favorite kind of movie with a not quite likable female character, because I love unlikable female characters because they are much more interesting to me as a person. And I want to start with you, Joe. I want to hear just like where this idea came from, because this is your first foray into like feature film writing and directing. So why this movie for your first?
Um, a couple of reasons. The main one is that I had written a couple of other scripts before that were a little bit too big of a budget, and I needed to have a
Okay.
smaller script. So I kind of worked backwards in terms of the story. I knew I wanted to make
Okay.
a movie about a person that descends into madness. I like
Okay.
those types of horror movies. I had a couple of models that I was kind of going to use as guideposts, but the kind
Oh,
of practical making of this movie kind of developed what the story would be. So I knew that we had to have a small cast. I was going to be
okay.
financing it. And so I, of course, wanted to bring Beth in. It was going to be in our household for a few years if we're doing this. I had a handful of actors that are dear friends, that are great actors that I wanted to use. And then I was like, well, I need some production value. What would look amazing to shoot at? Oh, what about atop of a mountain? And then, of course, I didn't think ahead of the logistics of doing that, but that wasn't, I didn't care at the time. I just had to write the script. And so at that point, I had to think about the story. And so that's where the story of like, why would a person be up on a mountain? Isolation. And so it kind of went from there. And then I wanted a protagonist that had a troubled history, that had a history that might warrant some of the actions that she takes. And we can kind of get into some of the more subtle things about that character and some of the things she does if you want as well.
I would absolutely love to. But first, I want to ask you, Beth, about what it was like being Kate and kind of getting into Kate's head, because Kate is complicated to say the
Yeah.
least.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, Kate, I would say is, it's unlikable, sure, but also she has PTSD. I mean, this is sort of,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like she might not have been an unlikable character. It's just
Yeah.
complicated. She's a complex character. I mean, listen, I was a little nervous for a couple of reasons. I'm mainly a
Yeah.
comedic actor, so this was my first sort of foray into doing something that was just a straight sort of thriller, psychological horror kind of thing.
Yeah.
I had a feeling we would work really well as director actor, because I think we work well in that capacity and also as actors
As
together.
actors together, yeah.
So I was really excited to get to work with Joe, and this is such a passion project for him that I knew he was going to take it so seriously. And I don't know,
Work my butt up.
yes, yeah. And so it was
Yeah.
great. It was great. It was a challenge for me for sure. And very cathartic, a lot of screaming.
I mean, I'll
Yeah.
just add on to that. I was excited because I had, Beth and I've been together for quite a while, and I'm well aware of the type of roles that she's able to do. And I knew that a lot of people hadn't seen that. She was terrific on Orange, and so people got a glimpse of that. But I also knew that there was other stuff there that she could mine. And so aside from being married to Beth, I knew going in that I just had a great actor that could handle the role.
Thanks,
Well,
Dave.
and I've talked to so many comedians and comedic actors who say that horror and comedy are so similar too. Like there is a similarity in terms of like building and breaking tension. And so I always find that comedic actors and comedians make some of the best horror filmmakers and horror actors, because you kind of get the pacing. It's just a little less funny, a little bit more disgusting and disturbing, but like I never realized until really starting to talk to creatives like y'all, like how similar the two are.
Yeah,
It's
they're
really
like
cool.
cousins. They're cousins.
Yeah, weird
Yeah.
cousins that like hang out at the barbecue and smoke
Yeah.
out back and like don't
Yeah,
talk to anybody.
Totally.
They sneak cigarettes together. I don't smoke anymore. The other thing is that they both genres offer up immediate reactions to whatever the moment is, and I think that's where the similarity is. It's either funny
Yeah.
and you're going to know with a laugh, or it's either scary because you know with a jump or a scream. And so they operate very closely in terms of the reaction that they're getting out from people. They're very visceral art forms.
Yeah. Well, and then like let's talk about just Kate's character and like kind of how you shaped Kate's character and some of the choices you made with her. And I especially love the choice of not really showing her assault I think so many movies like to kind of revel in a woman getting beaten up, and you were very careful with that, and I really liked that choice. So I just wanted to hear more about the choices you made with her character and like going and creating her backstory and what she's been through.
Yeah, well, to speak to that, absolutely. We had already seen a million movies where that happens, and I had to be careful that it wasn't exploitive of that topic and the issue, because I knew going in it would be a challenge. You know, I'm a white 50-year-old male that doesn't really know anything about the female experience, let alone one that's been abused. So, and yet I needed a character that had suffered some trauma and made some bad choices. So for me, the horror of it wasn't the actual her face getting hit with a fist. The horror of this movie is how PTSD is a very real nightmare for many people. And it's not that they're experiencing it at every second of the day, it's that they could at any of a second of the day experience it. And it's very real, and it very much corrupts and informs what they feel is reality. And I felt that was where the movie was, because what was important was to come at Kate from her POV, so that her terror is going to be our terror while we're watching it. So part of the challenge that I had is that I've always wanted to also make a movie where you're able to, and I'll use this word in terms of the archetypes of horror movies and not as a judgment or a label to Kate's character. I wanted to sympathize with the monster before you knew it was a monster. Yeah. And so that was a type of horror movie that I hadn't seen before, where it was important that we find Kate's vulnerability and that we can relate to it. So when we turn, it's not that we're excusing any actions, but there's some context for it.
And I love that, because just to get real on main here, I have a lot of PTSD from a similar situation. So watching this, I'm always so like, how are they going to handle this? And I was so impressed and surprised, just because, again, like, PTSD is different from everybody. It's not it's just not what everyone thinks it is. And having Kate go through this and seeing her POV and seeing a not so positive POV about healing, or like what it means to heal, or what happens, like, healing isn't linear and healing might not be for everybody. And I just, again, like, it's so interesting that you dig into that. And I think it's a conversation that is so important, but not everyone wants to have, especially in horror, I think. But I think it's opening up a really important discussion about these kinds of things.
I welcome it. And certainly did intend to make the movie as a message movie, but this movie is now
sorry,
no.
Right. It's
no,
this,
but
this
it is.
weird brain here.
What I mean to say is that is part of this movie, and the world is going to tell us what they want to talk about when they see this movie, and that's not up to me. And so I'm saying I welcome whatever comes from what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and then
that's
just like
reverse engineered, it became clear to you what it was, and then I think you got a lot more into the whole PTSD of things and the psychology of Kate and all of that.
It would have been foolish to jump into this movie and make it without understanding what other messages it's saying and what the subject matter is. Because, you know, one of the backlashes, unfortunately, for this movie, I believe, is that a lot of people are going to misread this movie. And they're going to say, oh, so that's what happens if to an abuse survivor, and my answer is no. It was very important that it was clear that Kate made terrible decisions and chose not to get help, because I do believe that there are certain traumatic incidents that you can't handle alone. And if you try to, you will fail and hurt yourself or other people.
It's true. From personal experience, like, not that I did this exact thing. I did not do this exact thing, but this is not based on a true story, guys, as far as we know. But then that, like, you talked about catharsis in playing Kate's character. Like, what exact moments did you find find catharsis? Was it mostly at the end, or was it just throughout this film that you kind of found yourself like having catharsis in this role?
Oh gosh, I mean, that can get really, really deep. A lot of the PTSD stuff, I think we all collectively, I mean, we were doing this during we did this during COVID. I mean, we did this during our own collective PTSD that we were all experiencing and all keeping inside and needed to scream and let out. I think it was really easy in some ways to just kind of access pain and anger and sadness and all of those things just because of where our society is right now, or what was happening at the time. And I certainly was going through stuff, and so it just coincided well, I think, in that way. Also, it's just fun to scream really loud and
that too.
Backs,
run around the woods, being a little bit crazy.
Yeah. So it's both,
Yeah. But was there anything that you did to kind of like come in and out of Kate's character at all? Was there any kind of like ritual or anything you had, or did you just you were able to just turn it on and off?
Well, one thing that I think that it was actually Joe's idea to have separate rooms for our stay in Idaho. So because he was a director, so he's up all night doing stuff. And I think when I came home to this hotel in Idaho, I think I needed quiet, calm. I needed to look at what I was doing the next day and get into like a certain frame of mind. I'm not a method actor per se, but like I'm just it's
still a lot. Like there's a lot going on with her in her head.
I make jokes and all that kind of stuff. But I needed some quiet and some space to look inside and just be a little internal with stuff. So I guess is that the right answer?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So but a lot of times we also had a lot of fun. I mean, Taria, who plays my best friend in the movie, I mean, is an actual very good friend of mine. So, and everyone in the movie, we know they're friends for years.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience just to be with our friends who all love and support Joe and are so excited to do this movie. And we were just, it felt like summer camp or something. It felt like we were all.
I was going to say, did it feel like summer camp? Because if you take out the horror part of it, it would feel like a summer camp.
Yeah, I mean, we had fun. I mean, Frank, our DP, had his guitar and we would sing. Taria's a Broadway actress, so she's singing. We're all singing. We had a really great time.
It's a beautiful community and a beautiful area, that Panhandle. And I just have to say that, we were very lucky to have been welcomed by Coolin and Priest Lake, who, without their kind of cooperation, this movie cannot get made. It's just too small of a town and a community. And, everyone has their ideas of what everyone's going to be like, right or wrong, going in. And what you find is that, if you are respectful guests in a home, then the hosts like you, it's very easy to get caught up in what you think you might be running into. But that area is so gorgeous up there. And we just had a great time.
We had a great time, but also, we had to move very quick because getting up to that Outpost tower was like 45 minutes up, 45 minutes down. So we were losing like 2 hours a day just on getting to that tower. So we had to work fast. We had to work efficiently. And I feel that we did. So we were able to have fun, but I think a lot of it was also definitely working fast.
Yeah, indie horror, man. What can you do? It's always so fast. And movies in general, but indie horror, I feel especially, is like you have 2 weeks.
Yeah, totally. And one of those like fight sequences that we were doing, like we had like 45 minutes to get we were like, all right, let's go. It was
towards the it was at the end of the day. But that that mountain is 6,300 feet in the air. And luckily none of us had altitude sickness.
Oh, I was gonna say
no injuries, but it did take an hour up and an hour down, and we were shooting in the summer, so we didn't lose daylight because we were so north, but it's a 12-hour day. And so we shot on the mountain for like 8 days. We lose 2 hours a day. That's like 16. So we really lost a whole day,
But also like shout out to the Jeep Club, because those were the people who were driving us up and down. They have like a Jeep club in Idaho.
Our friends Katie and Mike Millward, who gave us this gift behind me here, were the heads of the Jeep Club there. And so, I wanted to make sure there were locals driving us up the mountain and not a 22-year-old PA from Los Angeles. That doesn't, that
it was treacherous.
It was it's a serious.
Yeah. We actually know how to drive and aren't just used to highways that go straight.
They took care of us well.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. Wow, what an incredible experience making this movie, though. It sounds like it was
I was a
wild
dream.
but fun. It
A
was a
dream,
dream.
dream come true.
Yeah, I mean, it's a labor of love for sure for both of us, but especially for Joe. And like making a movie, making an indie movie, it's not an easy feat. And so I
No,
give you a lot of credit.
we did it. We did it. Yeah.
You did do it. So, have you always wanted to make a horror movie? Like, are you a horror person, Joe?
Yes. So I mean, the big surprise, the big reveal with Outpost is that I was a horror geek well before I was a comedy geek. So, like, you know, at 10 to 13, I'm reading Stephen King and collecting Fangoria and sneaking, you know, movies on cable television. And that's my first love. And then, you know, I've always liked comedy and was good at it. And so I kind of fell into that, love it, will continue to do it. But this is kind of like a homecoming. This is kind of really where it began for me. So everyone else, it's like, what? And for me, it's like, oh yeah, true. Yeah.
So cool. That's amazing. Okay, so what are some of your favorites, though? I want to hear some of the favorites
Well,
that you love.
my favorite is The Brood, is Cronenberg's The Brood.
Oh my God, The Brood is, thank
Yeah.
you. I feel like no one ever says that movie, and that
Oh,
movie
it's
is
the
just
best
so
one.
perfect. It's
Those
just the
little
best
things,
Cronenberg.
Yeah, they gave me nightmares for many, many years. And so that's at the top. And you know, it's hard because we all love the icons, right? The Thing and The Shining and The Exorcist and Jaws. I have like a piece of the orca. Jaws is why I make movies. It was the first movie I was like, how do they do that? And that's a horror movie. So, but The Brood is the one that I think not a lot of people know about, that for me was just like, I just can't sleep anymore for years after that movie came out.
I have an incredible book about The Brood on my bookshelf. It's like this thick, and it's like this.
What's the name of it? Because I'm gonna
Hold on,
get
let me just grab. I'm gonna grab it because I it's right here. So it's basically, it's just called The Brood, but it's like this thick book.
Wow. Joe, you got
By
to
Stephen
Stephen,
Bissett.
okay. Wow.
And it's just like
Is
analysis
it about the
of The
making
Brood.
of the script, everything?
It's everything. It's just
Yeah.
like Carter Smith, the director, got it for me, if you know him. It's just literally analysis upon analysis about The Brood. So
For that.
check it
Thank
out.
you for that, Mary Beth. That's amazing.
Yes, of course.
I don't know how I have not discovered that book yet.
Yeah, and it's ginormous, but you'll have lots to read about The Brood. But then Beth, are you a horror movie person? Were you a horror movie person?
You know, when I was a kid, I loved reading Stephen King books. So
cool. Okay.
And all that. So I loved, there was a mini series. There was an It mini series with John and the guy from the Waltons. What's his name?
Richard Thomas.
Richard Thomas. Yeah. I was obsessed with that mini series. So Stephen
Really?
King, I loved it.
Name your movie, which I love, that you were into.
It Follows?
No, I mean that you were, but Dream Warriors.
No, no.
You're always talking the third one.
The third one. Yeah. Well, similar to the third one is the best one. It's the best one because when he gets
the puppeteer.
He puppeteers out.
It is, that one is so scary. Like, look, we all respect to the original, incredibly terrifying, love the original, but the third one is just as terrifying to me.
Oh my God.
Personally.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was the first one I saw. So for me, that was the
one. Cool.
When I think of Freddy Krueger, I think of the third one.
I love
for
that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Grease 2 before I saw the original Grease. Yeah.
Oh, I knew that.
I was like, let's do
fascinating.
it.
That's fascinating.
I'm doing things backwards here. But so yes, I did like horror, certainly not as much as Joe. I think I was probably more on the comedy side. I would,
cool.
I would tape SNL and stuff. Like I was that kid, but with VHS records.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I would say Stephen King was my favorite thing in my youth.
Okay, before we wrap up, since you both said Stephen King, what is your favorite Stephen King book? That's starting with you.
I mean, it would have to be It or The Stand.
Okay. Joe, what about you?
It's got to be Pet Sematary. I think that's a real hard one for me. But Pet Sematary was one that just left me afterwards super freaked out.
It's really upsetting. Like they're all upsetting, but Pet Sematary, something about it really dug into my brain, and it was just like, oh God.
And having been now that we have a 7-year-old, it's even.
You remember that? where in the movie where
Mhm.
I just got an image of that, and now
When he puts Gage to sleep
Yes.
with the syringe.
Woo.
right?
I can't imagine watching that movie as a parent. That movie is just like parental, like don't watch if you're a parent. Like
no, thank you.
Yeah.
I realized after I had kids, honestly, my desire to watch things with specifically kids and
Sure.
animals, it
okay.
really, that went away almost entirely. I'm now kind of getting back into things. Like I can watch it
Yeah.
and handle it. But for years after having Eli, I was like, nope, not going to watch that.
Yeah.
Nope, no, cannot.
I've heard that from a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Beth and Joe, thank you so much for chatting with me today about Outpost. I really
I know.
appreciate
So
taking the
much
time to
fun.
talk to me, like digging into it a little bit. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having us. I'm really excited that that you had us on your show.
Yeah, thank you
Of
so much.
course.
And I love your passion.
Thank you.